$275 only.
Good evening and welcome to the news on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Shehan Ranatunga. Now the much-awaited T20 World Cup kicked off today and we have all the details right here. But first, let's take a look at your headlines.
Debt restructuring discussed with China. President says confident process will succeed. Bangladesh expects Sri Lanka to repay $200 million by March 2023. SLPP says ready for an election. 15 arrested in Nawalapitiya over protest against rising cost of living. Inclement weather affects 61,000 people. President instructs district secretariats to provide aid to those affected. Namibia pulls off surprise win against Sri Lanka in first T20 World Cup qualifier. Sri Lankan skipper says hopes to win the next two games and put the country on a winning track.
Now on to your top stories. 15 people were arrested during a protest in Nawalapitiya. They were later released on surety bail, according to our reporter.
The demonstration started at the Nawalapitiya hospital this morning. The group planned to march to the Nawalapitiya town. However, the police intervened and informed the protesters to stop the demonstration. The police arrested the protesters thereafter as they did not heed police orders. $15 people were arrested at the location.
Now the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna says that they are ready for an election at any time. The SLPP rally in Nawalapitiya under the theme Ekpa Nagitumu was held today.
The rally was held on the auspices of the leader of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Mahinda Rajapaksa. We took an uncomfortable decision to ban the import of chemical fertilizer. We took this decision as a policy decision for a noble cause. But looking back now, we can see that we were too quick in implementing this project. We made a mistake in identifying where and how we should use professionals and experts. There are talented professionals in these roles as well. There are doctors, there are lawyers, there are professors. But these professionals are going on a political journey with us. Certain other individuals who came out of nowhere and started advising the president painted a different picture in his mind. Politicians did not get any time to discuss and bring solutions to the issues faced by those in the tea industry, the farmers, and also address the lack of sanitary and other infrastructure facilities in the villages. We believe that governments in the country must change democratically. As a party, we are not scared of elections. As a party, we are ready for any election at any given time. The younger generation in this country have many hopes. They have their needs. We will reinvent our party as a party that identifies these needs and moves forward.
සමහරු කියනවා
Some people are saying that we are not holding elections. Others say that we are trying to postpone elections. We would like to ask the President to call for an election at any time. It could be local government elections, provincial council elections, or even a general election. I would like to say that we are ready for any election. I challenge the JVP to contest for the local government election and win one electorate in Nawalpitiya. If they succeed, Mahinda Alutgamage will retire from politics. That is how we have made this constituency.
සත්‍යනල පෙන්නන්න මහින්දානන්ද අලුත්ගමගේ ආය දේශපාලනය කරන්නේ නැහැ. එහෙම තමයි ජනාධිපතිතුමිනි අපි මේ ආසනය හදලා තියෙන්නේ. අපිට වැරදුණු දැන් තියෙනවා.
We made mistakes. We honestly accept them. But the people who point out our mistakes have also made mistakes in the past. When we make a mistake, we get an opportunity to correct our mistakes. We do not have to be ashamed. Some people know the truth but act as if they do not know it. A group continues to stand for what is wrong just because they are too ashamed to retract the accusations they have made. There is no point in engaging in such politics. There was a protest here. It was dispersed a few minutes before I arrived. What do these people want? What is the meaning of this? What do they expect? We know that there is a group in this country who are against us. But we know that at an election, our votes are higher. If a general election is to be held today, we will win. That is the truth.
ඒක තමයි ඇත්ත.
The ordinary people of this country rallied around Gotabaya Rajapaksa. Similarly, a group of intellectuals also rallied around him. Gotabaya Rajapaksa's manifesto was beautiful and important, but there were deficiencies in that program. We need to accept them. Even today, I love Gotabaya Rajapaksa as a person, but I still regret the fact that he did not accept the challenge that was presented to him. I must publicly state that I do not agree with the manner in which Gotabaya Rajapaksa declined to accept the challenge that was before him.
Now, after several seasons during which the farmers of Sri Lanka suffered with a lack of fertilizer, seeds and agrochemicals, farmers in Alahara partook in religious observances before the beginning of a new cultivation season today.
The start of the next Maha season is only a few days away. Farmers of the Alahara settlement engaged in religious observances at the Alahara Purana Devalaya in hopes of receiving fertilizer and other requirements for their cultivations. By the 1st of next month, we will receive water for the Maha season. We have to spend a lot for the Maha season. We don't have enough paddy to cover that cost. Our produce does not fetch a fair price either. We are facing a serious crisis. Farmers are in two minds about cultivating for the Maha season. Farmers who sustain their lives by feeding the people of Sri Lanka spoke to us about their plight today. Come, let me show you houses where people have nothing to eat. Malnutrition has increased. There were many vegetable cultivations in this settlement, but none of those cultivations are there. By next month, the price of a kilo of vegetables will increase to 1,500. Come the month of January, there will be no fertilizer for vegetables. That is certain.
News First with the people.
The renovation of the main office of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna in the Kurunegala district that was set ablaze on the 9th of May 2022 began today. The mayor of Kurunegala, Tushara Sanjeeva, was also present.
Now, there's no shortage in comments made on the political stage regarding the inability to take action against fraud and corruption. In the end, it's the people of this country that suffer for these transgressions of those seated in public office. Now, while the average Sri Lankans suffer, people in rural Sri Lanka have fallen from the frying pan into the fire. Gammadda went in search of these people.
Gammadda, door to door.
The Gammadda teams travelled across the district of Matara, Puttalam and Vaunia today. Today is day 12 of the Gammadda program. The Gammadda team in the Matara district visited the villages of Palatuwa, Attudava and Elamba Palagoda. These villagers who supplied rice to the country are suffering today. A barrier was constructed to prevent seawater from flowing into the fields of these farmers. These farmers spoke to us about how these barriers have today caused untold hardships to them.
වතුර ටික ඉහා ගන්න ක්‍රමයක් නැහැ. ඒක තමයි ගැටලුව වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. දැන් මේ අකර 12000ක් විතර සම්පූර්ණ කැරෑවිලා මේ තියෙන්නේ.
This is the Nagodavatia Narangala Anicut. The Anicut was constructed in 2017 at a cost of 6 million rupees. But the gates of this Anicut cannot be opened. Farmers in this settlement do not even have a motor. The state of the Anicut leaves about 2,500 acres of paddy fields inundated.
මේක කරකවන්න ගියාම ෆොටෝවල් දෙකක් කරගන්න පැය විතරයි. ඉතින් මේක මෝටර් දාලා මේක කරන්න හදලා තියෙන්නේ. කරේ බොරුවා.
The government teams in the Puttalam district visited the fishing villages along the coast of Chilao. Many of these fishermen are no longer going out to sea. They have been confined to their homes because they can no longer afford to purchase kerosene. The banks of the Nathandiya Sagaragama River and the sluice of the river have been washed away by floods. Farmers here told us they can no longer cultivate their fields.
Come at the door to door.
Let's now cross over to a short commercial break, but we'll be right back.
News First, main sponsor.
25% for 2 months, 25.5% for 4 months. Valuable FD.
නිවෙස පුරා ගලන මේ සතුට සුරක්ෂිත කරන්නේ එස්ලොන් ඉන්සයිට්. එස්ලොන් ජීවයයි ජලය ජීවිතේ.
25% for 2 months, 25.5% for 4 months. Valuable FD.
Good evening and welcome back. You're watching News First, where the people come first. President Ranil Wickremesinghe says the program to restructure debt will be successful. The head of state added he is expecting the discussions held with China's finance minister to end successfully.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe, along with a group including State Minister of Agriculture Shashendra Rajapaksa, visited fields around Rathumada, Veerakandavela in the Siabalandua Divisional Secretariat. According to the President's Media Division, the President discussed the current state of agriculture and the progress of the food security program with state officials. The President had said the delegation led by the State Minister of Finance, who had gone to Washington, held initial discussions with the International Monetary Fund and 3 main countries that have extended credit to Sri Lanka for the first time yesterday. The 3 countries are China, India and Japan. The President also said the government has prioritized ensuring food security by solving the issues surrounding the country's bankruptcy. We will provide fertilizer. We have received fertilizer needed for the first 14 days. We will provide the fertilizer needed for paddy and maize cultivations. Do not have a doubt about that. We will support the cultivations that we can support. Especially, we started this in the hope of continuing it. We will provide you with all the facilities, even though the government and the country is bankrupt. We need to cultivate paddy, maize and other crops during this Maha season. We need to get a good harvest from this. If we have a good harvest, the economic stability in the country will also be established. When production increases, the stability also increases.
Now, the governor of the Bangladesh Central Bank says Bangladesh remains hopeful that Sri Lanka will repay the debt of $200 million that it owes to the country by March 2023.
Governor of the Bangladesh Central Bank, Abdul Rauf Talukder, made this statement when he met with Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe. The 2 governors met in Washington, D.C. on the sidelines of the annual meetings of International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. Bangladesh granted the loan of $200 million under a currency swap deal to Sri Lanka, which it was supposed to return in 3 installments in February and March 2023. Although Sri Lanka was due to make the repayment earlier, Bangladesh extended the deadline for repayment in light of the crippling economic crisis which had plagued Sri Lanka. Talukder said, and I quote, "The CBSL governor assured that they will meet the deadline for repayment. Sri Lanka are now restructuring their debts and have spoken to India, Japan and China about it."
The youth leadership program titled Winspiration was held at the Sanctuary House in Pamunugama today.
A protest was held today in Ampara demanding an immediate reduction of the price of goods. The protest was organized by Women for Rights organization in Ampara. If you can't create a future for our children, we urge you to resign. Do that instead of destroying our futures and our jobs. This was a training program conducted for the youth with the objective of improving life skills, self-development and professional development, a 360-degree perspective on work and life.
We went into even details of how to plan your career, how to plan your family, how to balance your life, and how to be a part of a solution space than a problem space. This would take the message of how youth and the rather senior generations can combine together for the betterment of the country, irrespective of where you are, which part of the world you are from, which part of the country you are from, and which part of the walk of life you represent.
The organizers of this program were New Generation Chapter of Sri Lanka, alongside with the Institute Women in Management, and also included multiple international facilitators. Executive Group Director and CEO of Hemas Holdings PLC, Kasturi Chellaraja, and Chairman of the American Chamber of Commerce in Sri Lanka, Lakshman Madhurusinghe, attended the event as chief guests.
Technically, in all your lives, in every single day, you make choices. Every choice you make, you're responsible and the accountability stacks with you. So in office, if you are given, in your jobs, you are given a responsibility. It's up to you to make it work. You can't, if it doesn't work, you own up and say it didn't work. So one thing our generation is responsible for, and have to apologize to your generation, is that we didn't stand up and make people accountable for what their jobs were. And when you go out in society, you're accountable for what you say, what you don't say, and how do you influence. Every one of us as citizens have a choice. You have a choice to be your good or bad, your choice to help or not help. Eventually, the accountability lies with you.
Certificates were awarded to participants who attended the 2-month training program, which was conducted both virtually and physically.
Sri Lankan cricket captain Dasun Shanaka said that his team hopes to win the next 2 games in the T20 World Cup qualifying round and put the country on a path towards victory. He made this statement speaking at the press conference. And Namibia pulled off an upset win, beating Sri Lanka by 55 runs in match number 1 of the T20 World Cup this morning.
Back for Sri Lanka.
The T20 World Cup got underway today in Geelong, Australia. The first match of the T20 World Cup featured Asia Cup champion Sri Lanka taking on Namibia. The match is a qualifier for the group stage. Sri Lankan skipper Dasun Shanaka won the toss and invited Namibia to bat. Namibia lost their first 3 wickets for just 35 runs. However, a partnership between Namibian skipper Gerhard Erasmus and Stefan Baard put Namibia on top. The pair put on 41 runs together. The Sri Lankan team broke through, dismissing Erasmus for 20 runs, followed by David Weezer without scoring in quick succession. Jan Freiling and JJ Smith put on an invaluable 69 runs for the 7th wicket, breathing life to the Namibian innings. Once again, Freiling scored 44 runs from 28 balls. Namibia finished their 20 overs, posting a challenging 163 for 7 wickets. Pramod Madushan picked up 2 wickets. Chasing a target of 164 runs to win, the Sri Lankans were made to work hard by the Namibian bowlers. Kusal Mendis and Pathum Nisanka were dismissed for 6 and 9 runs respectively. The Lankans lost their first 4 wickets for just 40 runs. Danushka Kuntilaka was dismissed for a duck. Skipper Dasun Chanaka and Banuka Rajapaksa built a 34-run partnership for the 5th wicket, giving some hope to the Sri Lankan fans. But with the fall of Rajapaksa for 20 and Chanaka for 29, the Sri Lankan team's hopes of victory soon disappeared. They were dismissed for just 108 runs in 19 overs. Namibia notched up the first win of the 2022 ICC T20 World Cup. Charit is also an option. He was the highest scorer in the last T20 World Cup, so he has a good opportunity to step up. A World Cup means greater challenges. Conditions are different, but I think we have players who can play in different types of conditions. What matters is that we must perform on that day. We hope to win the next 2 matches, qualify for the next round, play well and win the tournament for the country.
Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa today spoke about the state of farmers in the country and those responsible for bringing them there. He was addressing the Samagi Jana Balawegaya Balamandala meeting in Polgavela. On World Food Day, the people of the country are left without food. People who used to eat 3 meals are now eating 2 meals. Those who ate 2 meals are now only having 1 meal. While that is the situation, those who brought the country into bankruptcy by wasting the dollars are now saying that they will rise back from the ashes. Today they are rising back from Navalapitiya. Why are they doing that? Look at how fate works. Farmers who are the providers of food to the nation were ruined by the minister from Navalapitiya. Not only that, they are going to have the meeting surrounding the SJB office. They harassed members of the SJB. That is how they are planning to rise back. I would like to tell them, have your meeting today and rise up again. I will also come to Navalapitiya and bring the whole of Navalapitiya to the streets.
We
must now cross over for another short commercial break, but do stay tuned.
Reaching out to the fallen, sharing the pain and suffering, standing with those in tears of despair, listening to heart-rending cries, providing solutions to daunting challenges. The Gum at the Door-to-Door team will be in your neighborhood very soon. Gum at the For the people, by the people.
Ratamagana dakina, Ratamagana soyana, Ratakumbala hindina, Ratamalut karana, Davasa, Davasa, Davasa.
Patikada Nidahasව ඇහැරෙන්න අදහස්.
The people's mindsets are strong. Despite poverty, they are strong enough to stand up and be counted. For them, Gammatha has been a source of strength for over a decade. Gammatha, for the people, by the people.
So we may have a new government, we may have a new president, but I think the decision makers haven't changed. Has there been accountability or reckoning, real reckoning?
Event. This should be considered as a first step in our debt restructuring process.
This crisis has come to a point where it's so bad that we can't look long term. The government in its current state cannot provide any concessions.
Is this not straying away from due process?
Never let anyone tell you that what you are doing is insignificant.
Face the Nation, every Monday at 9:30 p.m. on TV1.
ගමටම ඇවිත් ළඟටම ඇවිත් දුක නිවන ගම්නැද්ද රට නගන ජන පවුල.
Good evening and welcome back to News First on TV1. Now today is World Food Day. The theme for World Food Day this year is Leave No One Behind. The rest of the world is celebrating World Food Day while Sri Lanka is facing a serious crisis with close to half of its population being food insecure. Child malnutrition and poverty in Sri Lanka have increased to 15%. The price of food has tripled in a year. The amount of people foregoing at least one meal every day has increased significantly. All this is happening in a country which has an abundance of water with 106 rivers and many other gifts from Mother Nature. Once a country known as the Granary of the East, it is today food insecure.
According to the World Food Programme, 4 out of 10 families in the country are food insecure. The World Food Programme continues to emphasize that the constantly increasing prices of food as well as fuel are exacerbating the food crisis in the country. The World Food Programme warns that things could become worse if Sri Lanka continues down this path. UNICEF revealed that Sri Lanka is rising up the charts as the country with the 6th highest rate of child malnutrition in the world. It goes on to say that 1 out of 3 children in Sri Lanka is food insecure and in dire need of food assistance. The United Nations states that many Sri Lankan families are skipping meals as they are unable to purchase food in this crippling economy. The year-on-year inflation for food as of September is over 94%. Sri Lanka was once an example to the world when it comes to food and agricultural policies. That was only 3 years ago. The Sri Lankan people didn't take to the streets demanding for food 3 years ago. They didn't hold placards obstructing roads either. Times have changed. Parents are out on the streets searching for anything that they can afford to feed their children, but that too has become a difficult task. How did Sri Lanka get here? The reason for these crises are the wrong decisions taken by the government. The government banned chemical fertilizer imports on the 27th of April 2021. Both farmers as well as industry experts opposed this decision, but the government did not heed any warnings or listen to the voice of the people. Left with no other option, farmers took to the streets, but the government had no intention of adhering to the voice of the people. The agriculture minister even said that the government will compensate the farmers if they don't have enough fertilizer to cultivate. But this promise suffered the same fate as all political promises made in Sri Lanka. The farmers were helpless with no paddy and no money. But even then, the government was adamant and did not reverse their decision. Paddy cultivations were completely destroyed due to the fertilizer crisis. When former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa finally publicly admitted he made a mistake, it was too little, too late. The harvest of farmers dropped drastically. They were helpless. The country was hit by a food crisis. The food crisis was coupled with an economic crisis never before experienced in Sri Lanka. At a time when Sri Lanka was facing a forex crisis, rice was imported from overseas. Not only rice, maize and many other food items that are produced locally too were imported. Even animal feed was in short supply. This led to a drop in the production of eggs and meat. Do you remember the payment made for an organic fertilizer shipment from China that never even arrived in Sri Lanka? Incompetence at the highest echelons of government cost the Sri Lankan taxpayers $6.9 million, which at today's exchange rate is 2.518 billion rupees. In the end, Sri Lanka did not get any fertilizer and lost all the money that was paid for it. The Chinese company is demanding for more compensation. The state minister who supported all of these absurd deals is silent. What did the minister say about this? Do you remember? I had to stand with Gotabaya Rajapaksa. I will not bear responsibility for the ship carrying garbage from China. I am not responsible for that. I didn't say this for so long because Gotabaya Rajapaksa was the president of the country. I did not get involved in any of the processes to procure or distribute this fertilizer as the Minister of Agriculture. There was a separate secretary and a tender board to do that. The former Minister of Agriculture is denying any responsibility. The former Minister of Finance says that he was not aware of the state of the economy. Based on these statements, it is abundantly clear that all of these members of the executive have shirked their responsibilities. Farmers were also affected by the absence of a proper procedure to purchase what little harvest they managed to reap amidst the food crisis. Haven't responsible authorities learnt their lessons even after so many failed cultivation seasons? The same people who destroyed the agricultural sector, the economy and brought the country to a state where we have to walk around with a begging bowl are now saying that chemical fertilizer will be promptly imported. It's been several months since the statement was made. Now tenders are to be called for the import of fertilizer in a hurry. These officials have once again failed to coordinate the process of providing fertilizer to these farmers on time. We reveal these details to the country as they are supported by facts and figures. However, politicians are singing the same old song where they claim that they were the best, while they utter the words, "Api thamai hondatama kale." Corruption in the country is rampant. Everyone in the country, from the oldest senior citizen to the newborn infant, are paying the price. Bangladesh is now asking us to pay up on our dues. Politicians aren't too happy when we reveal these matters to the public, but that's all right, because we at News First are always with the people.
Now, over 61,000 people have been affected by the incessant rains that hit the island. The Disaster Management Centre said that over 5,000 people have been housed at safe locations. President Ranil Wickremesinghe instructed all the district secretaries to coordinate the relief work with the help of the Disaster Management Centre for those affected by the prevailing bad weather conditions. The head of state said that all necessary provisions have been allocated to the Ministry of Finance.
Meanwhile, the irrigation department says the Kalani, Kaluganga and Athanagaluoya are still at minor flood levels. With the rise of the water levels of the Kalani River, areas in lower Hangvalla were flooded since last evening. People displaced due to the inclement weather were being sheltered at the Hangvalla Mayadunna National School. Many houses and roads in Vellampettiya are still inundated. Roads along the Bakmigaha Road in Pitugalu Malabe are inundated. With the rise of water levels of the Kalani River, many villagers in the Miyagama Divisional Secretariat have been inundated. Many areas along the Dumpe Pugoda Road are also flooded. Although the rainfall in the Galle district had reduced, heavy showers in the upper catchment areas of the Gin River had resulted in several low-lying areas in Baddegama and Parthavalivita being flooded. Heavy rains persisted in Valimada and Uvaparanagama across the day-to-day. Meanwhile, the landslide warnings issued to the Colombo, Galle, Kalutara, K-Galle, Nuwara and Ratnapura districts will continue to be in effect.
Now, looking at the weather forecast, the Met Department says that the current heavy rains are expected to continue due to the influence of the Intertropical Convergence Zone, which is located in the vicinity of the island. Now, showers or thunder showers are expected at times in the western, Savaragama, central and northwestern provinces and the Galle and Mathura districts.
The body of one person who fell into a gem mine filled with water in Vagavatta Hurana was recovered this evening. The incessant rains had flooded the entire mine and 5 people were working to retrieve the equipment in the mine at about 10 the day before yesterday. One of these people had gone missing in the mine. The body of the deceased was recovered after divers of the Navy conducted search operations both yesterday and today. The deceased has been identified as Nirosh Chandana, a 46-year-old resident of Hurana.
And with that, we wrap up our news for tonight on TV1. Thank you for watching. For the News First team, I am Shehan Ranatunga.